I'm Professor Irina, or Professor M, and welcome to the Global Professor. If this is your very first time in one of my classes, welcome. Today I want to talk to you about 7th edition APA. I love APA. When I was a student and I finally learned how to properly structure my work, it was such a game changer in my writing, in my individual papers, but mostly in my team papers. Because when you're able to structure the work in the way that it needs to be written out, it is just so much easier to go in and find the content that you need to work on so that you can work on it instead of just having to go through the entire paper all at once. So I want to show you how to write in APA 7th edition, but I'm going to do this in 2 videos. So the very first video is going to focus on your cover page and just the basics that you need to know before you even start writing any content. And then the second video is going to go into level headings, and I'm also going to give you some pointers on how to help your paper flow a little bit better, but also give you some rules that you need to keep in mind when you're writing your papers. All right, now before we get started, I want to get in your head in the same way that I get in the heads of my students. And I want you to stop thinking of yourself as just a student writing a paper for college and start calling yourself what you are. You're an author, right? You are the author of the work that you are writing. And if you're working in a team, you are the authors of the work that you are writing. Now, when you're writing a research paper, you have to go out and find sources, right, to help you prove certain points. This is why you have to actually have in-text citations and references to your work. Remember this, I'm going to say this in the second video, but I want you to keep this in mind. If it doesn't belong to you, you got to give credit where credit is due, right? So you bring in sources from the outside, and that's why you reference those sources, but the rest of the work is yours. That is your intellectual property, right? It is your thinking. Now, if you don't believe me, just listen to this. Alexa, what is the definition of author?
As a noun, author is usually defined as a person who writes a novel, poem, essay, etc., the composer of a literary work, as distinguished from a compiler, translator, editor, or copyist. As a verb, author is usually defined as to write, be the author of. For more, ask me to give you more definitions for author.
You see? You're an author. Now, the reason why I want you to think like this is because when we raise ourselves to another level of thinking, our work ends up mirroring that, right? And so we meet a different kind of potential. And that's what I want for you. I want you to think of yourself as an author. Now, with that title comes some responsibility. Authors have to edit their work. They take their time with their thinking process, right, in order to put their thoughts down on paper correctly. And they know that it is a reflection of who they are in that moment, and it's also a reflection of how they process the information. So your work is going to reflect who you are. So you always want to make that the best possible reflection, right? So you want to dedicate yourself to your work. Now, we're going to get started on the first video, which is going to be your cover page. I want you to do me a favor, and I want you to go grab a textbook, one of your school textbooks, and I'm going to show you why in a minute. All right, let's get started with your cover page. Now, before we get into actually structuring your cover page, I do have to put this disclaimer out, just so you know. You want to make sure that you follow whatever structure your professors are actually giving you for your work. All right, I'm going to teach you 7th edition APA formatting, but you do want to follow whatever it is that they're asking of you, basically because they're grading you. So you want to listen to what they got to say. Now, before we actually get started doing this, I'd like for you to do me 2 favors. If you're watching this on a phone, I want you to go get your computer or your laptop, because I believe in experiential learning, which is basically learning by doing. So if we do this together, it'll stick in your head a lot better. And I also want you to go grab a textbook if possible. It's going to make sense in a second. Now, let's get started with structuring your actual paper or your cover page. Before we start doing any of the actual writing, I just want to make sure that everything is formatted the way that it needs to be before you even start doing any of the work. So let's do that. What I want you to do is go to Layout. Now, I am working on a Mac. So if you have a PC, you're going to want to see whatever it is that, works for your PC. Word should basically pretty much be the same. And I am going to work on a Word document instead of a Google document. All right, so we're going to do this on Word. Now, you want to go to Layout and you want to go here to Margins. The newer computers tend to have this already in default where it needs to be. So you want to make sure that it is normal at the very top or 1-inch margins all the way around. That's 7th edition APA. Now, go back to home, and I want you to go here, and I want you to click 2.0. Now, 2.0 is basically going to set up your entire paper to have double spacing all the way throughout the paper, which is what you want to have for 7th edition APA, all right, to structure all of your papers. Now, when you do this, this means it stays in this format throughout the entire thing. There's only one section on your cover page that you're actually going to double space, and I'm going to show you what that is. But the remainder of your paper simply stays in double spacing, okay? So I also want you to go back here, and I want you to click on line spacing options, and I want you to click here on don't add space between paragraphs of the same style. Now, what this does is, for some reason in some papers that some of my students turn in, this really weird spacing happens when they finish a section, do a level heading, and go into another section, right? It's just this odd space that is not part of APA, and so points get taken off because of that. This will help you prevent that from happening, especially if you're transferring your work over from like a Google Doc or anything like that. All right, now we've done that. Now we want to go pick a font. Now, there's a couple different fonts that you can use for 7th edition APA, but I'm going to be honest with you. I just tell my students to stick to Times New Roman size 12 font. It's easy to remember, and when you're working in teams, if you all just get on the same page about what font to use and what font size to use, you don't have to worry about it for the remainder of your paper. So it's just easier to stick to one font. But I will tell you this, whenever you're working on any paper, as soon as you're done working on the actual paper, highlight the entire thing from beginning to end and make sure that it is all in the same font. For those of us who read papers a lot, we can tell instantly when there's an inconsistency in the text or the font size or anything like that. All right, now let's get started with the content that goes on your cover page. Now, you got your textbook, right? Okay, I want you to look at your cover page. I want you to look at your entire paper like if it was a mini book, all right? You're the author of this book or the authors of this book. Now, I want you to look at the cover page in the same way that you would look at the cover of a book. So your cover page is going to have the title, which is going to tell the reader what the actual paper is going to be about, right? Just like this. This is my leadership book for my leadership class, and it's the leadership experience. So my students know that what they're going to have in this book is the leadership experience, what they're going to learn from. It also has the name of the author. Your cover page is going to have the same thing. Now, when you look inside your textbook, at the very beginning, this is where you have the publisher, when it was published, all of this information. And that is pretty much what's going to go on your cover page. Not all of this information, but you'll see what goes on there. So I want you to look at the cover of your papers like the cover of a mini book, okay? You are the author. Remember what I said. So let's go here. Now, you are at the far left-hand corner. Right, so what I want you to do is on a Mac, you click return 4 times. On a PC, you would hit enter. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you go here and you center your work. So everything in this portion of your cover page is going to be centered. Now, this part, which is your title, is going to be in bold. So on a Mac, it's Command B to bold your writing, or you can just go up to this corner and click the bold. And on a PC, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Control C. Now, the title of your paper, again, centered in all bold, and it's going to be title case, which is basically saying that the first letter of every word is going to be capitalized, except for prepositions. You want to keep short prepositions and articles uncapitalized. Pause for some examples. Conjunctions are also left uncapitalized in your title. This includes the words and, but, if, nor, or, so, and yet. Here's the easiest way to remember what to keep uncapitalized. If the word has 3 letters or less, keep it small. Now, the only time a preposition is capitalized in a title is if it's the very first word of the title. The same rule applies for conjunctions and articles. So, that's what it should look like. Again, the little wheelie thing. All right, now underneath your title, if you're required to do a subtitle, you would just go underneath, you click enter 1 time. It would do the double spacing already for you. And your subtitle will go there. According to your 7th edition manual, The title should summarize the main idea of the paper simply. For research papers, it should be a concise statement of the main topic of the research and should identify the variables and theoretical issues under investigation and the relationships between them. Now, in my class personally, I like when my students are creative with their titles, and I also try to get them to make them short, sweet, and to the point, right? Okay, now, I want you to hit enter or return twice, and then I want you to unbold your work. So again, Mac Command B, or just go up here and click this button to unbold your work. Now, here is where your name goes. So you will write your name. If you're working in a team, you would put a comma and then write your teammates' names. And when you get to the last person on the team, you're going to use an Oxford comma and then the word and then their name. An Oxford comma is also known as a serial or series comma. It's used when you're writing out a list of 3 or more items or names. It's typically placed before the words and, or nor. If you're looking at the example I'm typing up, you'll see I'm using one prior to the final teammate's name. All right, so if I have larger teams, I have my students do 3 names on the top and then 4 names on the bottom or 3 names on the bottom, depending on the size of the team. So I always have them put, if it's 5 people, then 2 names on the top, 3 names on the bottom, but you want to ask your professor what it is that they would prefer. I also have my students put it in alphabetical order based on last name. Makes it a lot easier for me to find them in the grade book that way if I have to do things by hand. I do live in Florida, so hurricanes tend to happen. Sometimes we do have to work that way. Okay, now once you have the names, I'm going to say this is a team paper. Once you have the names, you go in and you put the department name, so wherever it is, whatever department it is that you're studying in, and then you want to put the university name or the college name. All right, now, after that, you go and you put your course number. So let's say that you were taking my leadership challenges and strategies class. You would put MAN 4120, colon, and then you would write out the entire name of the class. Okay, so whatever class it is that you're taking, you write out the course number first, put a colon, and then space, and you write the name of your course. Side note, make sure to copy the format of how your course number and name are written out and pay attention to the spacing. Here are 2 examples. Then you put your professor's name. Now, if your professor has a doctorate degree, you would put doctor. So let's say it looks like this. If they don't and you're in college, then you would write professor. And I'll just use my name again. Okay, here's something that I do want you to pay attention to, because remember when we write in resumes, we put attention to detail? Yeah, this is kind of something like that. Your professors know what their names are spelled like. So you want to make sure that you look on your syllabus or you look on your class schedule to make sure that you are spelling your professor's name correctly. It matters. We know how to spell it. So you don't want points taken off for something that small. You don't want points taken off for anything small, right? So this is why you want to do your work with enough time to be able to check for all of these little mistakes just in case you make them. Okay, now after that, you write your due date. So it's the date that you are actually submitting the work, okay? So your due date, not the date that you're writing the paper, the date that it is due. So let's say that it is due... today. Okay? Don't write the paper the day that it's due. But let's just say that's the due date. Here's another side note. If you're not from the US, write out the date based on the format used in your country. Now, once you have all of this done, remember what I said, it's like a cover, it's like, right? You have all of the information, the title, the name of the author, where it was published, what it's actually about. So what is it for? Your class, right? And then the professor who you're writing it for, and then the due date, right? So it's like the date that the book is published. Now, the last thing that you want to do is you want to add your page number. So here you would just double click on your Mac and it would just automatically bring up the header. And you want to go here to page number. Click on page number. You want to make sure that your page is aligned and to the right. And click OK, and your page number will automatically go up to the top. Okay, now I know that there are some of you that don't have that easy way of doing the page number. So I want to go ahead and show you how to go ahead and put the page number if it's very different. You want to go and put insert, and then you want to go over here to page number. Click page number. You just want to make sure that it says top of page header, and then make sure it's aligned to the right. It's my shepherd. Say hi, mama. All right, and then you want to click OK. And that's how you get a page number if it's not done the other way that I showed you. All right. So this will follow through in any of the other pages. So when you go to your second page to start the actual content of your work, you would already have your page number at the very, very top. Now you want to make sure that you have your page number at the top on page 1. It does start on your cover page. I have a lot of students that forget that they have to put a page number on the very first page of their work, which is the cover page. So you do want to have the page number on the very first page. Now again, 6th edition used to have a running head on the very top left-hand corner. You no longer need that for 7th edition, but ask your professors just in case they want it there. And there is this extra spacing between your title and where the rest of the content actually starts. So remember that, okay? Your title also is in bold. So these are the little differences that change from 6th to 7th edition. All right, in the next video, we're gonna talk about level headings. Now, there are 2 things that I want you to do for that video that you did for this one, which is keep your laptop with you if you're using it while we're doing these lessons, and also keep a textbook with you as well. I'm going to show you the comparison of how chapters work in a book and how level headings work in a paper. Hopefully it'll make sense to you in the same way that it did for me. It was a game changer for me once I started looking at things that way, so I want to show you the way that I learned how to do it. And I also want to end this class by giving you my mission statement, which is something that I do every single time with my students in every single semester. My mission statement is your success is my success. And by that I mean it's my job as a leader to give you the tools to be successful, and it is your job to implement those tools in order to be successful. So I am here for it, and I'm here for you. Now, if you have any questions about the cover page, go ahead and leave those questions below and I'll get back to you. Now, I will be doing future videos that have to do with remote presentations, so how to present if you're having a remote or if you're taking a remote class. And I also am going to do a video on what to do to present when you are in person. Hopefully we'll be back on campus soon, so you'll be presenting in class again. Don't worry about it. I used to freak me out. Doesn't anymore. So I'll teach you some of the things that I learned as a student and then also as a professor that helped me become a better speaker in front of others. So if you want to go ahead and follow my classes, go ahead and click down below. I think that's what people say. I don't know. This is my first one. So go ahead and follow along. I would love to teach you anything that has to do with education or leadership or just some of the life lessons that I've learned along the way that have helped me just become a little bit of a better version of myself. So I'll see you next time in class. Bye.